knew? The very two things I struggled to talk about the most growing up, my Korean culture and mental health, would be the very two things I'm most proud to talk about today. In my formative years back in the 80s, yeah, I don't look 50, right? Just turned 50. In the 80s, thank you. I spent much of my childhood and teenage years feeling the angst around my cultural identity. I felt shame, at times even distress. Because, my friends, this is what the conversations I tended to have, mainly with non-Asians, looked like. So Jeanie, are you like Chinese or Japanese? Neither. I'm Korean. Okay, so like, what's that? No. Yeah, so I'm from Korea. Oh, Jeanie, oh gosh, what is that smell in your house? Oh, so I think you're smelling kimchi. It's like fermented spicy Korean cabbage. It's in the fridge. Does it taste as bad as it smells? So Jeanie, like your mom said something to me, but I couldn't understand her. What did she say? Oh, yeah, so my mom has a Korean accent. She was asking if you wanted something to eat. When I tell folks this is what conversations around me tended to look like growing up, I do tend to see surprised, even sad faces. By no means I'm trying to relive my childhood angst, trust me, or make anyone feel bad. I'm just sharing matter-of-factly that things look so different back then in the 80s. Speaking of which, I have a question for you. Audience, what is Netflix's #1 most watched show in its history? Squid Game. Okay. I heard Squid Game. That is correct. Can you believe Squid Game is a Korean drama? By definition, that is a Korean language television show. What is what I said? When I see that or hear that, so surreal. According to Netflix, their K-drama viewership more than tripled during the pandemic. Okay? But K-dramas existed well before Squid Game. Let me take you back to 1992 when I was 18. Yeah, I happened to be in Seoul, South Korea, attending the Yonsei University Korean Language Summer Program with fellow Korean Americans around the country. And I saw my very first K-drama in Korea. It was called Jealousy, Jutsu. And that is the very first time I fell in love with my Korean culture. Because until then, I kept it like this, at arm's length. No, I don't want to be that. And I remember that excitement and happiness, seeing someone who looked like me and actually someone I wanted to be like. I was like, she's cute, she's pretty, she's bubbly. I love her personality. That could be me, or perhaps I could be like her. I want to be like her. And plus she wasn't a love triangle, you know, that little trope there, fun. But what made that first experience with the K-drama so memorable was sharing about that joy and happiness and excitement to the community around me at the time, which happened to be fellow Korean Americans. And I got to see Korea in real time on TV, and I got to experience it in real life in that summer of 1992. That was amazing. That was one of the best summers to this day of my life. But during that time, I remember going, what's this feeling? I'm having so much fun watching this with my community. It was Jung. Now, Koreans will tell you Jung. Let me do the best I can to define it. It is innate in our Korean culture and Korean society. It is a unique emotional sentiment experience encompassing, I would say, belongingness to the depths of heartwarming feelings that you find in affinity, affection, attachment, kinship, kindred spirits. All those elements, I believe, are essential to your mental health. And that's what I was getting at. When you're happy and joyful, don't you want to share it with your community? And also on the flip side, when you're struggling and having a hard time, it also helps you to share that so you don't feel as alone. Mental health depends, your well-being depends on you not feeling alone. And we heard that from Saren earlier. Let me define mental health so we're clear. Mental health is your emotional well-being, your emotions, your social well-being, your relationships and how you are relating to them, and your psychological well-being, which means how things like resilience and stressors impact your brain, the psyche. Mental health is an everyday, every moment thing. And I can't say it any better, I tried to, but the World Health Organization says it so well. There is no health without mental health, which is how K-dramas came into play. I brought in K-dramas to promote more conversations surrounding mental health. Now, maybe you're asking, why K-dramas? Though, judging from you guys knew Squid Game was, so maybe you're watching them, but I don't want to assume that. Why K-dramas? Guess what? Not only do I ask that question, I've asked it decades because I've been watching them since 1992. I also want to share that I ask that of anyone I speak to, from clients to the social media community, to anybody who wants to hear, to those I've done research with. What's the appeal of Korean dramas? So I'm going to tell you. The two very things I did not want to talk about, right? Growing up, my Korean culture and mental health. The two very things I leverage today to help you and my clients and people understand mental health as it powerfully intersects with your identity. You're psychologically attached to your identity, whether you know it or not, depending on what season of life you're in. That's why I felt such distress, because I just wanted to feel accepted. You know, be like, oh, you're cool too, and no, you don't stand out, and you're not a foreigner. That's why it was difficult growing up. But as I went over decades, the question I kept asking is, wow, is it because I'm Korean American that I love these K-dramas? But over time I went, as I introspected, I like asking myself questions, and that's what you do as a therapist, ask questions to your clients. I went, what is it that's resonating? And then my answer and answers to folks I asked, this is what it is. Korean dramas focus on the characters. They're written with the storytelling narratives that focus on the character development, the people. Now, at the end of the day, people relate to people. But it's not just relating to the people. What are they experiencing and feeling? I was looking at Korean dramas and going, wait a second. What's resonating are these universal themes and messages, the rawness of humankind, like hope, resilience, healing through adversity and traumas, to celebrating the joys and successes of our lives. Those are universal. So I like to say mental health and the language surrounding it is universal. I just defined emotional, social, psychological well-being, all those elements that I say that we see in the characters of Korean dramas. Now let me go back to that Netflix fact that it tripled, more than tripled actually, to clarify, more than tripled in the pandemic, K-drama viewership. Today, I want to say that I've experienced a global community. What you're seeing is one of my tour groups in South Korea. And that Chang, okay, the belongingness, I say the depth of emotion is threaded throughout the Korean dramas because it is a core value of Korean society, Korean culture. So it's just there. And I'm just going to share this. I talked about Chang earlier. No one taught me about Chang. My parents didn't teach me growing up saying, you are going to learn about Chang. No, I felt it. And that word came to mind. Somehow, it's like you heard it. I heard it somewhere. And one of the things I will say, I don't care who the audience is to non-Asians, I will shout Chang to shout to the mountaintops high and low, because we need that belongingness It's what sustains us in the toughest of times, but actually helps us celebrate our most joyous of times with the community around us. So today, I want to share, as these folks are saying, Jeanie, I love these Korean dramas, and they're not Asian. Yeah. And here's what I'm hearing. Let me just kind of act out again a conversation or many conversations today. Jeanie, oh my gosh, I wish I lived in South Korea. Korea's so awesome. What? Jeanie, I don't even have a culture. You have the Korean culture. I'm just white and American. What? Jeanie, I just made my big batch of kimchi and it tastes really good. It's my first time making it. What's your recipe? Yeah, so I don't make kimchi. I buy it. Jeanie, I just moved up a level in Korean language class. I'm an intermediate now. I'd love to practice with you. Me smiling, sure. Thinking, OMG, please don't speak better Korean than me. I'm Korean American. More commonly, I hear, Jeanie, what K-dramas do you recommend for things like grief, anxiety, post-traumatic stress? And I have countless stories, but I'll share some of what I've heard, not just as a therapist, but in the community, the global community growing. When a 31-year-old who has trouble managing her long-term depression, in our field is called clinical depression, that's genetic. She saw a portrayal on the K-drama Our Blues and went, okay, wait, I just saw this woman turn her life around by managing her long-term depression, by going to therapy and taking medication. I think I could do that. Or when a young adult male who is at the end of his rope, he shares, feeling hopelessness and considers ending his life. He sees the K-drama tomorrow, and goes, oh my God, these stories, they're like me. I don't feel as alone. And so he got the strength to call up a colleague that he trusted to share, and that colleague helped him find professional help. Or when a mother's at the end of her rope, now she's in her late 40s, and she's like, I'm having trouble with my mother. I cannot understand her. I just feel like I need to cut off ties. But then she sees the K-drama, Dear My Friends, which focuses on the aging population. And then she goes, wait a second. I believe my mom is going through her own trauma that she can't define for me because of the language barrier. Then she sees an explosive scene in that drama where the adult mother literally shatters the glass vase, not to her mom, but on the floor. And then she went, Jeanie, that felt so cathartic. That's actually what I wanted to do in real life. I didn't do it. But just seeing that scene made me realize I just didn't have the empathy and compassion. And to this day, they're the most avid watchers together, having these journals, exchanging one another because they're across the world, talking about Korean dramas. Or I have a story also where grief, which is, I want to say, one of the biggest things that came out of the pandemic, a woman says, I saw something and I realized that I hadn't grieved the death of my parents that died back to back 5 years ago from seeing the K-drama Chocolate, which showcases not really grief, but it just hit her. Now, by the process of what's called externalization, it's a therapeutic technique, you can see outside yourself when you're watching stories that have nothing to do with you, but actually everything to do with you, like your emotions, and go and get a new perspective of like, aha, wait, that's what I'm experiencing, or that's why I'm mad. You are able to separate yourselves through externalization by looking at who you are aside from the situation you're in, the problem. And you're able to gain a new perspective. That's what I see coming through K-dramas. But how do I know all these stories? Not just because of my line of work. It's all out there in a global, expansive K-drama community, as you see here. Because Chang, that belongingness, is what people want. I'm gonna leave you with this. This precious moment, I always get emotional, is my inaugural tour group last September. Now, we've already eaten, so I took the picture after, or they took the picture after, but when they're eating, they're saying things like, this is the most delicious food ever. Oh my God, kimchi. Yeah. And I still get asked, do you make it? I said no. But then they're sipping and slurping deliciously, like you see in the K-dramas, yeah. Doenjang jjigae. Now, doenjang stew is this fermented, stinky, okay, fermented soybean paste stew that even Koreans will tell you, yeah, it kind of smells. They're smelling it and going, oh my God, I'm finally eating this that I see in the K-dramas. It's delicious. And I'm like, what? But it's like all empty, and then they go get extra servings. This moment is forever here. Sorry. Because in order for me to do my work as a clinician, I need all the strength too. I specialize in grief and trauma. So when I get these moments, I hold it here. That Chang, the sharing with me, the excitement, but also the sorrows that I hear, and I can do my job. So I leave you with a takeaway. Where is your Chang in the community, that belongingness that we crave? And I'm going to tell you, it is an essential, innate human need, just as equal to food, water, and shelter. I want you to find it, but it's an everyday thing, just like mental health is an everyday thing, every moment thing. Now, in the K-drama community, as well as K-pop community, we have adopted a Korean gesture. And so if I'm going back to the two very things that I didn't want to talk about growing up, okay, Korean culture and mental health, I bring it back here saying I am proudly talking about my Korean culture and mental health by leaving you with this gesture. Finger hearts, try to do it with one hand. I heart you. Do you know in the K-drama community, we just do this and we're like, yeah, got it. Yeah, thank you, you got my back. Or this, arm hearts. And lastly, I'm leaving you with, I'm going to put this down. Thank you.